What's going on, Jet fans? We know this 90-man roster is going to stay fluid throughout camp. The Jets signed like 4 dudes in the last 48 hours, and more will be released and signed as we head towards preseason. I got 5 names I'd be interested in bringing in, besides Dalvin Cook, Quan Alexander, and Teddy Bridgewater, because we've beat those to death. I am going to start with 2 players who both play guard, Dalton Risner and Andrew Norwell, who are very similar players. Norwell older, 31, a Pro Bowler all the way back in 2017, just released recently by the Commanders. And then Risner, who played 4 years as a 4-year starter with Denver, pretty rough to end that contract. That 4th year, Denver's offense fell apart. He took a step back. Norwell, definitely declining, borderline starter there. They're both incredibly consistent, incredibly durable, and they're both better pass blockers than run blockers, which is something that's lacking on the Jets offensive line. Most of our guys are kind of inverted in that sense. And I don't think there's such thing as too much depth on the offensive line. And looking at this interior of the offensive line, it seems like the Jets see Schweitzer as more of a center who can play guard, and they see Turner as more of a tackle who can play guard. And they see McGovern as a center who can maybe play guard if you really needed him to. So I just want this year's Nate Herbig, a pure guard who, if somebody's got to miss a month, you could be okay. And maybe you have to peel off about $3 million to get him in here. But man, if there's one spot on this team I want to overinvest, it's the offensive line. And I'll live with growing pains and young players anywhere else. But you got to keep Aaron Rodgers upright. Number one, the tackle spot. Almost assuredly, we're not going to be as injured as last year, but you do have to prepare for the worst. In the back of my mind, I'm wondering at what point would the Jets move AVT back to tackle? Okay. It's July. I'm reading too much into it. I understand, but both of our best tackles on the team in Becton and Brown are not really practicing or up to speed. So if AVT were to kick out to tackle, I'd rather have one of these guys in here, just a pure straight guard, than a Turner or a Schweitzer. Or then if Turner is at guard, then at tackle rather, then he's unavailable at guard. So I think the depth at guard is a little bit deceiving. I don't think it's quite as deep as we think, because guys could be getting pulled in different directions. So I'd be interested in both of those guys. And additionally, Laken Tomlinson, I'm 99% sure he's going to be better than he was last year. He has to be, right? But if he's not, I hate to beat a dead horse, but there were games where what we were trying to do offensively last year was impossible, almost solely because of his play and how bad it was. Now, he'll get the benefit of the doubt to start the season. Are we going to bench him after 1 bad game? No. 2 bad games? No. But the first month, he looks like that. You can't just throw in the towel on an entire season just because the guy's making too much money to bench. So it's twofold there. ABT could possibly have to kick out the tackle, and then Laken will kind of have to wait and see. Now, hopefully, you would spend $3 million, and they would just sit on the pine on the bench. But I'd rather burn $3 million than be where we were last year. Next, I'm looking at linebacker Rashad Evans, free agent, formerly of the Atlanta Falcons, 27 years old, 6'2", 230 pounds, speedy, makes some big hits, misses too many tackles, kind of so-so in coverage. Pretty much a poor man's Quincy Williams. And I think they're giving Sherwood the nod at the 3rd linebacker spot, which I think is fine. I think he's going to earn it. I'm more and more confident about that. But behind him, it's a lot more question marks. So if Zaire Barnes isn't up to snuff and you want to have Evans in there as a backup just to hedge against some of these young guys, I consider that as depth if they're not going to bring back Quan, which seems less and less likely. Just is what it is. You got to go with your young guys at some point. You got to develop players, right? I'm looking at running back. If they're not going to go Cook or Kareem Hunt and go the cheaper route, maybe you can get running back Kenyon Drake on a 1-year minimum contract. 500 yards last year on 4.5 yards a carry, chipped in 18 catches, 28 years old, and not a lot of tread on the tires, and he's been a 3rd down back, a receiving back in his career. 2 seasons with over 50 catches under his belt, And I think he's the kind of guy where you can bring in, and then if Brees is all up to speed and everything else is looking good, you probably cut him on the last day of cuts. But he is another body they can add to the room if they're not going to go with some of the pricier options. Finally, I'd consider bringing in A.J. McCarron, quarterback, who was most recently a backup with the Buffalo Bills. And I get that they're not going to bring in an expensive guy like Teddy Bridgewater. It is my opinion that with a decent coaching staff can turn Zach Wilson into a decent backup. That's it. Oh, he sucks. Okay, that's fine. That's fine if that's your opinion. I'm not saying they're going to turn him into Joe Burrow. But can a coaching staff worth his salt take Zach Wilson's tools and turn him into the 45th best quarterback in the NFL? I think that they should be able to. But if they can't, or if those kind of yips still just haven't gone away, because it's unpredictable if that's going to happen or not, there's nothing wrong with making him earn it, right? Jamien Sherwood has to earn linebacker 3. Whoever earns running back 2 is going to have to earn it. So there's no reason that Zach Wilson can't earn quarterback 2. And if we're being honest, what he put on film last year was not just a locked, rock solid quarterback 2. It just wasn't. And with McCarron, for his career, very small sample size, but over a 60% completion percentage, 7 touchdowns to 3 picks, almost 7 yards per attempt. And then if Zach beats him out, good, you cut him. And if Zach's still struggling, then maybe Zach really needs what they probably should have done his rookie year. Again, if you're triggered about me talking about Zach Wilson, I'm not saying he's going to be Mahomes when Rodgers retires, but he's still on the team, and it's the team's job to still try to do the best they can to develop him. And I think the best thing to do that is to give him a real reset, a real redshirt year. Because if Aaron Rodgers, gets the stomach bug in the week 3, and Zach has to go out there against Belichick again in front of our crowd, who's going to be ready to kill him after the first pass goes over somebody's head, and then it's just back to square one, and then his confidence is completely done, and then his career is probably over in New York, if that happens, right? So we could avoid that by just having him have an actual reset where he gets a whole year to just learn and just be a student of the game without really the notion that he's even going to have to go in. And you can easily carry 3 quarterbacks now with that rule where he would only go in if the first 2 guys get injured. So I'd consider those, did I get 6? 5 or 6 guys? I don't know. We'll talk about soon.